Hello and welcome. It's Bev here from Living Fabulously with Bev, and I hope that you join me and we talk about the next 4 ways to living fabulously. I just want to check if this is coming up on my Facebook feed so I can see your comments. Okay, here we go. Brilliant. So if you have any questions, please feel welcome to pop them in the chat comments box. So what we're going to do today is just cover a little bit more depth about the next 4 ways to living fabulously. And the 4 steps are fairly simple. So we're going to talk about increasing leafy greens. We're going to talk about experimenting with protein, and we're also going to be talking about minimizing processed food and then closing off with nurturing yourself. So the first one about increasing leafy greens, the really important fact about this is not only are they jam-packed with nutrients, but if you think of this in nature, if you think of the trees and plants and all of those things, they have usually green leaves, which actually in a plant, it's about taking in carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen. But what happens in the body is it filled with enzymes and actually supports good liver health and cleansing. And so what you'd want to do is increase the amount of leafy greens you're eating. So if you're in summer, it's quite easy to do because you could add these to lots of salads and things like, for example, smoothies. You could add things like, for example, parsley. People don't often think about it as a leafy green because it's a herb, but it is jam-packed with nutrients. So it's one that you'd want to add if you were adding it to a smoothie. And what we want to also do is consider how you could go beyond salads. So, salads, as I say, in summer is pretty easy to do. But what about if you are in winter? So a lot of my friends and colleagues are in, the States. Welcome, Patty. And so they're in the throes of winter in the cold. So how could you get more leafy greens with that? Well, if you can still get hold of, for example, kale. Kale is a great substitute for potato chips. So what you do is wash your kale, dry it well, and then actually add a sprinkling of olive oil and some Himalayan salt, and actually dry it in the oven at a very low temperature. And so that would be another way to get some more leafy greens. But when you're in a cold climate at this time, you'd be adding in through soups and stews. And you'll just feel a remarkable difference, not only in your health, but also in your energy. Like I say, they come packed with chlorophyll and other nutrients that actually have almost the widest variety of nutrients. So keep increasing your leafy greens and notice the difference in your energy. And then we spoke about experimenting with protein. And protein, we often, I grew up in a household where it was meat and veg. We kind of want meat and potato more accurately for the guys. We tended to focus on meat and potato. So when I'm saying experiment with proteins, what I'd like to suggest is that you consider something like Meatless Mondays. There are so many other forms of protein beyond animal protein. So don't get me wrong, animal protein is really good for certain constitutions, and it's because it's got a lot of amino acids in it. So for example, one egg has more than 22 amino acids in it. So it's considered a real whole food. But if you're not into eating eggs, then you can get to other food that wouldn't have packed with nutrients like the proteins. So what we're talking about there is it could be plant-based. So it could be legumes, it could be nuts, it could be seeds, and in fact a lot of vegetables have more protein in than you think. So you can mix it up. So if you mix it up during the week where you're actually trying different styles of foods, and just a fascinating fact is in the blue zones of the world, which is people who have the highest rate of longevity and health. So we're not talking about just old age, we're talking about longevity with well-being. And they actually primarily eat plant-based with some fish and seafood products. So just think about how you can mix it up to get the best type of nutrients for your type of constitution and your beliefs. Some people don't believe in eating animal protein, so that's fine, but just have a variety. And the other thing is about minimizing your processed foods. So it's really interesting. Before I was unwell, I actually I was a label watcher because I had a gluten and lactose and dairy intolerance. But I didn't really consider the fact that a lot of the things that come in a bag, box or can are what I would call food-like substances. They may have started off as a whole food, but what ends up is because they need a high shelf life, they get processed and then they get added to. So you will notice in a lot of cases, there is a high dose of fructose corn syrup. And we won't get started down that rabbit hole right now. But just know that it's incredibly bad for your insulin levels and therefore your ability to ward off what we call sort of a glucose intolerance. So what happens is your body stops processing glucose in the way that is intended and your overproduction of insulin. So you have all sorts of health problems with that. But so beyond the sugars that get added as a preservative, it's often higher in fat, or it's got these additives in. And so if you don't recognize the name, or you don't know, and as soon as it's got a number, it's manufactured. So when you're looking at stuff like that, well, what's the alternative, you're probably thinking? The alternative is to actually shop in the fresh produce section of the supermarket. And normally if you stick to the outer edge of a supermarket, you're likely to find fresh produce. And if you live in a place where it's difficult to get fresh produce, then you need to become an avid label reader. So for example, when I mentioned using plant-based protein like legumes, or let's take chickpeas. So chickpeas come in a can, and that's convenient. So what you do is, if you're not prepared or don't have the time, sometimes it's just a convenience thing, look at the label and make sure that there are simply chickpeas and water with perhaps some salt in it, and that the tin itself is BPA free, so that you're not creating a problem where your immune system just gets overloaded with trying to decipher the codes of things that it was never intended to digest. So it's really important there to, really be a label reader, be discerning about what's in that product, and make a choice. So I think people who watch me shop probably get a smile on their face, because I'll pick up the can, have a good read, and I'll probably put it back. It's 9 times out of 10, I'll put it back. And even things like baked goods, if you read, the fact that bread can stay on a shelf for up to 2 weeks, and yet when you live in a place like France, bread is made freshly every single day, and it gets stale very quickly because it doesn't have all the additives in. So just rethink where this sort of processed food is impacting your life. And when you open your cupboard, you may be surprised at how much is in there that is actually got numbers and colors. So you could do a audit in your kitchen cupboard and confirm whether you're choosing to eat this going forward or not. It will be a very different experience for you in your well-being. Yes, Patty says she has to take her reading glasses to the grocery store just to read the labels. I take mine out and I keep them perched on my nose, and I don't really worry what anybody else is concerning themselves with. And then the fourth one is about nurturing yourself. Now, I know that a lot of people have been seeing that, self-care, take care of yourself, all these type of things. And it can get overdone, and people going, well, of course I take care of myself. So yes, you do. And you probably have really good hygiene routines. You brush your teeth, you wash your hair, you shower regularly, all of those things. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about nurturing yourself at a really deep level. So what I'm meaning is taking time out of your busy day that it's just for yourself. So, for example, in the last half an hour of your day before bed, you could create a list that when you're tired and exhausted and you really don't know what to do to nurture yourself, is have a go-to list. It's like a fluff me up list. And in that list could be things like even having a bath with some candles and some lovely oil in the bath. It could be listening to your favorite music that really makes you feel calm and peaceful. It could be some mindful coloring in. But whatever goes on that list is something that actually is just for you. Now, if you're in a couple situation, obviously you need to consider that. And a lot of people say, well, I don't have time during the day to spend with my partner, so we sit in front of the TV. Well, I wouldn't call that couple time. What might be more positive is to actually switch off all the devices and actually sit and have a meaningful conversation eye to eye. And definitely no finance at that time of the evening. But it's finding things in your life that actually fill and feed your soul. What is it that actually allows you to feel that you have been deeply taken care of? And if we wait for other people to do that, we'll be waiting a long time. And so the idea here is that you fill yourself up so that you can actually serve others from a place of fullness, not depletion. A lot of people who come to me have got adrenal fatigue, and one of the first questions that I will ask is, how do you actually fill yourself up? Because adrenal fatigue is often associated with A-type personalities who are high achievers and who ignore the signals that their body is giving them. So actually having time in a day, and you might do it first thing in the morning, you might do it last in the evening, or wherever you choose. What you're really trying to do is reconnect back to yourself. Reconnect back to who you are, who you want to be in this world, and how you want to show up. But it's for yourself. It's actually not for the pleasure of others. If you think of being in a family situation where you're a mother and you've got demands on your time, it feels like there's no time for yourself. So you need to be conscious about making time and giving yourself the opportunity that it gives back to you. As I say, feeding yourself. And it doesn't need to cost money. Yes, it can. It could be that massage. It could be having, a pedicure or a manicure. It could be any of those things that cost money. But it could be even as simple as taking a walk on the beach barefoot and coming back to yourself and just feeling grounded, feeling connected to who you are, and just feeling the joy. Because I think especially at this crazy busy time, we are so disconnected, I think, in a lot of ways from the meaning of what's supposed to be happening right now, because we're so busy shopping, preparing for guests, cooking, and so on. So I invite you just to, slow down, take some time for yourself. And we have 4 more ways to living fabulously, but I'd invite you to download the opportunity. I've got 12 steps to living fabulously. It's simple steps. It's these steps with some ideas and giving you guidance around the 4 areas. And then there's what I call a fridgeable. And the fridgeable is actually like your permission slip to say, this is what I'm going to focus on. This is what I want for myself. and it's got the 12 steps. And so what you could do is just focus simply on one at a time. And when you feel that is something that's working well for you, move on to another. So this is not about taking 12 steps in 12 days. This is about taking each step and focusing on just one thing and making it valuable in your life. So thank you for being with me here today, and I look forward to sharing the next lot. But before I go, wishing you and your loved ones a very happy and safe festive season, and I look forward to being with you in 2018. Bye for now.